You're sitting on your couch and your hand absent-mindedly reaches for the corner of a soft, faux fur blanket. You don't need the warmth and you aren't thinking about the fabric. Your fingers simply find a patch of texture and begin to stroke it over and over in a rhythmic, mechanical motion. Why did you do that? What was your brain actually looking for in that moment of mindless friction? Why do we feel a sudden, almost magnetic pull to reach out and touch the velvet of a flower petal, the smooth grain of polished wood, or the dense, chaotic fur of a passing dog? Is this just a harmless habit, or is it the outward symptom of a deep neurological hunger that defines our entire species? Why are humans the only animals on Earth that feel a compulsion to groom things that don't belong to them? If we understand why we want to pet a puppy, can we finally explain why some people look at a 500-pound grizzly bear and feel the same irrational urge? The hardware is only half the story. To understand why your hand has a mind of its own, we first have to ask, what exactly is happening under your skin when you touch something soft? For decades, scientists believed touch was a simple data entry system. You hit a surface, and your nerves tell your brain if it's hot, cold, sharp, or smooth. But in the late 1990s, researchers like Francis McGlone at Liverpool John Moores University discovered something specialized. They found a specific type of nerve fiber called C-tactile afferents, or CT fibers. These aren't like the nerves that tell you a stove is hot. CT fibers are found only in hairy skin, which covers almost your entire body, and they are tuned to a very specific frequency. They don't care about texture or temperature. They only respond to a slow, gentle stroke moving at a speed of between 1 and 10 centimeters per second. If you move your hand too fast, the CT fibers ignore you. If you just press down, they stay silent. They are specifically designed to detect the exact motion of a caress. When these fibers fire, they don't send a signal to the part of the brain that identifies objects. They send a signal directly to the insular cortex, the area responsible for emotion and social bonding. This raises a startling question. If our bodies are hardwired with affection receptors, are we actually petting animals? Or are we just using them to flip a biological switch inside our own heads? Is the dog the point, or is the dog just the most convenient tool we have to satisfy a neurological craving for tactile comfort? But vision isn't the only trigger. If we are simply looking for a way to fire those CT fibers, why do we choose certain targets over others? Why does a fluffy kitten trigger a frantic need to reach out, while a smooth-skinned lizard often triggers the opposite? This brings us to a concept discovered in 1943 by the Austrian ethologist Konrad Lorenz, known as the Kindchen schema, or baby schema. Lorenz was a pioneer in animal behavior, and he noticed that certain physical features act as an innate releasing mechanism for human caregiving. These features include a large head relative to the body size, a high, protruding forehead, large eyes set low on the face, and soft, rounded features. To a human brain, this isn't just a list of traits. It's a biological command. When we see these proportions, our brains release a flood of dopamine, the same chemical associated with addiction and reward. It's an evolutionary insurance policy designed to make sure we don't abandon our own highly vulnerable infants. However, the system is leaky. Because the baby schema is so simple, it's easily hacked by other species. This is why we find ourselves wanting to pet a baby seal or a panda, even though they share zero genetic interest with us. But does this mean our affection for animals is just a giant evolutionary mistake? Are we simply the victims of a biological short circuit that forces us to treat everything with big eyes like it's our own child? The answer might lie in the chemistry of the gaze. Once we've moved past the initial visual trigger and actually made contact, the relationship changes from a one-way observation to a two-way chemical conversation. This was famously proven in a 2015 study by Takafumi Nagasawa at Azabu University in Japan. Nagasawa wanted to know why humans and dogs have such a unique bond, so he measured the levels of oxytocin, the love hormone, in both species. He found that when a human and a dog stare into each other's eyes and the human begins to pet the dog, both the human's and the dog's brains begin to pump out oxytocin in massive quantities. This creates a positive feedback loop that is identical to the one shared between a biological mother and her infant. But here is the wow factor. This loop does not exist between humans and wolves, even if the wolves were raised by people from birth. Somewhere in our history, we didn't just decide to keep dogs around. We co-evolved to be able to read and reward each other on a hormonal level. We pet things because on a chemical level, it makes us feel like we are part of a family, even if the family member has four legs and a tail. But if this bond is based on mutual benefit, why do we still feel the urge to touch animals that offer us absolutely nothing in return? Why do we want to pet a bumblebee or a wild bird, creatures that don't have the neurological equipment to love us back? This leads to a much darker question. If petting is supposed to be a calming, bonding experience, why do we sometimes feel like we want to squeeze a small animal until it pops? Have you ever looked at something so unbelievably cute that you felt a strange, sudden surge of aggression? Maybe you gritted your teeth or felt your hands clench into fists or said something like, "I just want to eat you up." This isn't a sign that you're a secret psychopath. Scientists have a name for it: cute aggression. In 2015, psychologist Oriana Aragon and her team at Yale University conducted a study to figure out why humans have these dimorphous expressions of emotion, where we react to a positive experience with a negative expression, like crying when we're happy. The researchers found that when we are overwhelmed by something too cute, our brains essentially redline. The emotional high is so intense that it becomes debilitating. To bring us back down to a functional level, the brain triggers a burst of the opposite emotion, aggression, to act as a regulator. It's a biological reset button. We feel like we want to smush the kitten because our brains are trying to prevent us from becoming so incapacitated by love that we forget to actually take care of it. But if our brains are this finely tuned to regulate our interactions with cute things, why do we so often ignore the danger signs? Why does the petting instinct sometimes override our most basic survival instincts? The mystery of high-risk cuteness. This is where the human brain truly separates itself from the rest of the animal kingdom. Most predators see a bear as a threat to be avoided. A human, however, can look at a bear, an animal that can decapitate a moose with a single swipe, and think he looks like a giant teddy bear. This is the result of a cognitive bias called anthropomorphism. We are so socially oriented that we project human emotions and intentions onto things that don't have them. We see a smile on a dolphin that is actually just the shape of its jaw. We see guilt in a dog that is actually just reacting to our tone of voice. We see a sleepy, friendly lion and assume it feels the same way we do on a lazy Sunday afternoon. But there is a second, more dangerous layer to this. For a certain percentage of the population, the risk is the point. Psychologists call this sensation seeking. When you stand near a powerful animal, your brain is flooded with a cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol. If you survive the interaction, your brain rewards you with a massive dopaminergic hit. For some, the urge to pet a wild animal is a form of high-stakes gambling. They are betting their lives for a single moment of tactile intimacy with the sublime. But how did we get this way? Was there a specific moment in our history when we decided that the risk of touching the wild was worth the reward? The history is written in the bones. To find the origin of the petting hand, we have to go back to 1959 to a remote research station in Siberia. There, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev began one of the most famous biological experiments in history. He wanted to recreate the domestication of dogs using wild silver foxes. He didn't train them. He simply selected the foxes that were the least afraid of humans, the ones that would let a person get close enough to touch them. Within just a few generations, something shocking happened. The foxes didn't just become tame, their physical appearance changed. Their ears became floppy, their tails started to wag, and their coats developed white patches. Most importantly, their levels of adrenaline dropped, and their levels of serotonin, the feel-good chemical, soared. Belyaev discovered domestication syndrome. It turns out that when you select for tameness, you are actually selecting for a juvenile brain that stays curious and social forever. We didn't just learn to pet animals, we literally sculpted them over thousands of years to be pettable. We chose the ones that wouldn't bite us. And in doing so, we created creatures that crave our touch as much as we crave theirs. We have spent the last 10,000 years surrounding ourselves with biological mirrors that reflect our own need for connection. But what happens when we run out of animals to pet? What does it say about us that we are now trying to pet machines? The hardware is evolving. In the modern world, we are increasingly isolated from the natural world, but our CT fibers don't know that. They are still sitting there under your skin, waiting for that 1 to 10 centimeter per second stroke. This has led to the rise of social robotics. Engineers are now building robots like Pero, a robotic harp seal used in nursing homes, specifically designed to trigger the baby schema and the CT fiber response. Patients who interact with these robots show lower blood pressure and reduced stress, the same as if they were petting a real dog. We are so desperate to pet things that we will settle for a sophisticated bundle of silicone and fur-textured plastic. This brings us back to the ultimate question. Is the urge to pet a sign of our dominance over nature or a sign of our utter dependence on it? Why do we feel a sense of awe when we touch a wild creature? Perhaps it's because, for a split second, the barrier between species dissolves. When you pet a dog or a horse or even a velvet pillow, you are reaching out into the world and asking, are you there? Are we the same? We pet things because we are a social species that was never meant to be alone in a room full of glass and concrete. We are built to be part of a living, breathing web of textures. The truth is hidden in your palm. Think back to that faux fur blanket or the dog's head from the beginning. You weren't just touching a surface. You were performing a ritual that is hundreds of thousands of years old. Every time you reach out to stroke something soft, you are using a specialized neurological hardware that was designed before the first city was ever built. You are firing CT fibers that evolved to keep you bonded to your tribe. You are hacking a baby schema that was meant to keep your ancestors from abandoning their young. You are engaging in a chemical exchange that once turned wolves into companions. We want to pet everything because we are the only species on Earth that is tactilely lonely. We are constantly searching for a way to confirm that the world around us is alive, that it is soft, and that it won't hurt us if we just reach out and say hello. The petting instinct isn't a glitch. It's the bridge we built to stay connected to a world we've spent the last century trying to pave over. But there is a final, unsettling piece to this puzzle that we often overlook. If the urge to pet is a biological command designed to foster life and social bonding, why does it feel so heavy when it goes unanswered? Consider the phenomenon of skin hunger. In modern society, we are more connected than ever through screens, but we are experiencing a crisis of physical touch. Studies have shown that infants who are not touched fail to thrive, and adults who lack tactile contact suffer from significantly higher rates of depression and anxiety. This is why the petting instinct is so aggressive. It's not a luxury, it's a survival mechanism. When you see a video of a person trying to pet a bison in Yellowstone, you aren't just looking at stupidity. You are looking at a starving brain. You are seeing someone so deprived of the sublime connection of the natural world that they are willing to risk a violent death just to bridge the gap. We are a species that has forgotten how to be part of the world, and our hands are trying to remind us. The final proof of this isn't in a lab or a textbook. It's in the way you reacted to the very first sentence of this script. When I mentioned the texture of the blanket, your brain didn't just process the word soft. It likely triggered a phantom sensation in your fingertips. You could almost feel the resistance of the fibers. This is because your brain is so specialized for touch that even the idea of a texture is enough to activate your sensory cortex. We are at our core a species defined by the hand-eye connection. Our eyes find the beauty, and our hands demand to verify it. We pet things because we cannot help ourselves. We are built to seek out the soft, the warm, and the living. We are the architects of a world that is increasingly hard and cold, yet we carry within us the ancient, unyielding desire to find something, anything that will let us stroke its fur and feel for a moment that we aren't alone. So, the next time you find yourself reaching out to touch a textured wall, a velvet leaf, or a stranger's golden retriever, don't just think of it as a random whim. Recognize it for what it truly is. A ghost from your evolutionary past, whispering a command that you have no power to ignore. Your fingers are seeking a language that predates words. They are looking for the gentle stroke that tells your insular cortex that you are safe, that you are connected, and that you belong to the living world. It is a beautiful, dangerous, and deeply human compulsion. And it's why, despite all the warning signs, all the fences, and all the common sense in the world, someone, somewhere, is reaching out right now to touch something they shouldn't. Because in the end, the pull of the soft is stronger than the fear of the sharp. But before you go and test that theory on the next stray cat you see, remember the cost of that biological reset. Remember that your brain is a master manipulator, willing to flood you with dopamine to get what it wants, even if it puts you in harm's way. The world is full of things that look like the baby schema, but possess the predator reality. We live in a world where the lines between cute and deadly are blurred by our own neurological biases. We are a species that wants to hug the world, even if the world isn't always ready to hug us back. This curiosity, this drive to touch and be touched, is what made us human. It's what allowed us to tame the wild and build civilizations. But it's also the very thing that makes us vulnerable. It's the paradox at the center of our identity. We are the creatures that pet. Think about that the next time you find yourself staring at something you shouldn't touch. Ask yourself, is it the animal I want to connect with, or is it just my own brain begging for a dose of its favorite drug? And more importantly, what happens to a species that loses its ability to distinguish between the two? We are currently living through the largest social experiment in history, one where we have replaced the fur and feathers of the wild with the glass and plastic of technology. Our CT fibers are still there, waiting. Our Kindchen schema receptors are still firing, but the world we are touching back is increasingly unresponsive. Are we becoming more human by finding new things to pet, or are we losing the very thing that makes the touch meaningful? The answers are right there, at the tips of your fingers. You just have to be brave enough to feel them. Now, I want you to look at your hand. Look at the ridges of your fingerprints, the subtle sensitivity of your skin, and the way your fingers naturally curl as if they are waiting to hold something. This is your most powerful tool and your most demanding master. It has shaped the world, and in turn, the world has shaped it. We are a species of reachers, of strokers, and of healers. We have used these hands to paint the walls of Lascaux, to build the pyramids, and to comfort the dying. But we have also used them to cage the things we love, just so we can stay close enough to touch them. It's a complicated legacy, and it's one that we carry with us every single day. Every time you reach out, you are casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. Is it a world where we respect the boundaries of the wild, or a world where everything is a potential pet? There is no right answer, only the constant rhythmic pull of the petting instinct. It is the heartbeat of our species, the silent rhythm of the hand moving back and forth, seeking the comfort of the living. It is the most natural thing in the world, and the most strange. And that brings us back to the very beginning, to that mindless moment with the blanket. You didn't choose to touch it. Your body chose for you. It was a small, quiet moment, but it was the final, haunting proof of the biological cage we live in. Your hand didn't need the blanket to be real. It just needed the blanket to be soft, because in the dark, silent chambers of your brain, the texture is the only truth that matters. You will keep reaching, and you will keep stroking, and you will keep petting, because that is the only way you know how to be sure that you are still here. Why do humans want to pet everything? Because without the touch of another, we start to disappear. We reach out not because the animal is there, but because we are. And that is the most definitive, haunting proof of all. If this deep dive into the strange, tactile hunger of the human brain made you look at your own habits a little differently, let me know in the comments. What's the one thing you know you shouldn't pet, but you absolutely would anyway if given the chance? Is it a bumblebee, a Highland cow, or maybe something even more dangerous? I'm genuinely curious to see where we all draw the line between common sense and the baby schema short circuit. And if you want to join us for more of these explorations into the why behind our weirdest human instincts, hit that subscribe button and stick around. There are a lot more rabbit holes to go down, and your hands are already here. Let's see what else we can reach out and find together. See you in the next one.